To make this crochet bikini, you're going to need a few different materials. The first is the yarn. I'm using the Big Twist Shine yarn from Joann Fabrics. Unfortunately, this one isn't really available at the moment to purchase, but a similar yarn is the Caron Simply Soft. You'll need a crochet hook that works with the size and weight of your yarn. I'm using a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a pair of scissors to cut your ends. You'll need a darning needle to tuck your loose ends, and you'll also need stitch markers. So I'm going to talk about the process a little bit before I start getting into the actual instructions. Most of this bikini will be worked up using the double crochet stitch. However, when you get to the ruffle part, you can switch to the triple crochet stitch because that one works up a little bit faster and that ruffle does take a good amount of time to get through. The straps or the underbust tie, the waistband tie is going to be done using the cord stitch. You can also do a chain stitch instead if you prefer. If you can do all of those things, you'll be able to make this bikini with no issue. So let's get started. You're going to start by making each of the triangle cups. The first step would be to make a chain that is the length from your underbust to your apex, which is your nipple. And I made this bikini before, so for me, I'm going to start doing 11 chains. However, that number might vary for you. So I'm going to take my working yarn and I'm going to create a loop, insert my crochet hook, yarn over, chain 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is how long my foundation chain is. I'm going to chain 2 for height because we're doing double crochet stitches. And skipping those first 2 chains that I just did, I'm going to work into the 3rd chain, doing 1 double crochet stitch. And then I'll continue to double crochet across the row, but I'm going to stop before I get to the very last chain. I'm at the very last chain. Within this one chain space, I'm going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets, which that will become an increase. It'll eventually be the top or the very peak of the triangle. So that's why we're doing it here. You're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets. It almost seems like you're turning as you're working, but this chain is going to get loose as you work. You're just going to pull the end piece where you started your yarn, and that'll close up the hole for you. You can also take a stitch marker and place it on that chain space, and that way you can keep track of where you need to increase. Then you'll continue to double crochet along the other side of the foundation chain until you get to the very end. I've reached the end of my row. I'm going to chain 2 and then flip my work and double crochet across this row. I'm going to stop once I reach that stitch marker. I'm at my stitch marker. Into that chain space, I'm going to do the same thing like I did on the previous row. 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. So this is 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. And you're going to take your stitch marker out and move it up to the new chain space that you just made. And then continue to double crochet until you reach the end of the row. I reached the end of my row again. I'm going to chain 2, flip my work, and then work across doing double crochet stitches. And I'm going to do the same increase pattern or corner pattern once I get to that stitch marker. I'm back at the chain space again. I'm going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then 2 more double crochets. I'm going to move my stitch marker up just so I can keep track of things. And then I'm going to double crochet until the end of the row. So each of these rows are going to be exactly the same. You work until you get to the stitch marker. You do the corner pattern, the 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, and then continue to work along the row. You're going to continue to work up these rows until the triangle cup is big enough to cover up your breast. It's up to you to decide how much coverage you want. So I want mine to be pretty full coverage. I think I'm going to end up doing about 9 rows, and I'm going to come back when I get to the end of that 9th row. I feel like the cup is now the size that I want it to be. I have 9 rows total. The next thing I'll do is clip my yarn and pull it all the way through the loop so that it won't unravel. Everything that I did with this first cup, I'm going to do a second time to create the second cup, and I'll come back when I'm done. I finished my second triangle cup off camera, so here's how they both look. And now my next step would be to make the straps that'll join the cups together. I'm going to be doing the I-cord stitch, and I'm going to reattach the yarn at the top of both of the triangles. So here and here where the chain space is. I'm going to make the cord long enough that it can wrap around the back of my neck and also tie in a bow. I'm going to do a second cord that is going to lace through the bottom of the triangle. So here and also here. And it'll wrap around my underbust and tie in a bow at my center back. I'm going to put one of the cups to the side for a second. I already pulled out a pretty decent amount of yarn. This is about like 3 times the length that the strap will need to be. I'm going to insert my crochet hook into that chain space, yarn over, and then pull through. And then I'm going to take the left yarn, wrap it around my hook, take the right yarn, wrap it around, and I'm going to pull the right yarn through 2 loops. Left, right, and then pull through 2 loops. Left, right, pull through 2, and then continue to work. If you don't like doing this stitch, you can do a chain stitch instead for the straps. You'll reattach your yarn at the same spot, like at the top of the triangles, but you'll just do a chain stitch instead. And if your yarn is kind of thin, you might want to double up the yarn. So this is how my cord looks so far. I feel like this is pretty sturdy to be a strap. And now I'm going to continue to work up the cord until it's the length that I need it to be. I feel like my strap is now the length that I want it to be. I measured it off camera and it's about 26 inches. So I'm going to cut my yarn. And I'm going to pull one side through the loop. I put the left yarn through the loop. And now I'm just going to tie it in a knot so that it doesn't unravel. And that is one strap done. So this is about how long it is. And now I'm going to reattach my yarn to the second triangle cup and do the same thing. The strap should be the same length. I finished the strap on the second bra cup. So I'm going to put the bra cups to the side for a second. And now I'm going to work on creating the strap that's going to go around the underbust. So I already pulled a pretty decent amount of yarn. This is it here. And this is about like 3 times the length that I would actually need. I'm going to fold the yarn in half. And I'm going to make a slip knot. So just wrapping the yarn around, inserting my crochet hook and pulling up 1 loop, and then you can pull it tighter. Okay, so I'm going to take my left yarn, wrap it around my crochet hook, right yarn, wrap it around, and then pull through 3 loops. And then this time I'm going to do left, right, and then pull through 2 loops. Left, right, pull through 2, left, right, pull through 2. And I'm going to continue to work up this cord until it's long enough to wrap around my underbust and tie in a bow at my center back. Now I have both of the cups done, and I also have the underbust tie done. My next step would be to lace the underbust strap through the bottom of the triangle cups. So along this edge and along this edge. I have my strap right here. And I'm going to take my crochet hook and just work it along the bottom edge, lacing it under and over the double crochet stitches. I have one side laced through. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the side to the side. I'm done lacing the underbust strap through the bottom of the triangles. So this is how it looks. You can barely even see it, but yeah. And you want to make sure you have about the same amount of yarn on each side. So I'm just going to pull this through a little more. All right, so I can take this stitch marker out. And my next step would be to lace through, use a darning needle to tuck the loose ends. So I'm going to tuck this piece like along this edge here. And then I also have one at the center of the cup. I'm going to have to tuck that in somehow. And then I have two more on this side. That means the triangle bikini is pretty much done at this point. And now I'm going to move on to working on the bottoms. So the first step to making the bottom is to make a chain that is long enough to fit snugly around your hip measurement. Your hip is the widest part of your butt. And the reason you're going to do that is because you want to make sure you're actually able to pull the bikini on and off, since your hip is typically the widest part of your lower body area. You just want to make sure you're able to get the bikini above that. But if your lower waist, which is where the bikini is going to sit, if your lower waist is wider or a bigger measurement than your hip, then you need to make your chain long enough that it fits around that lower waist measurement. So you're just going to go according to whatever is that widest measurement. For me, my lower waist is smaller than my hip, so I'm going according to my hip. I've made this bikini before. I'm going to start by doing 130 chains. I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to start by doing those 130 chains. This is 1, 2, I have 130 chains here. This is about how wide it is. And I'm going to make sure I straighten out my chain. You want to make sure it's not twisted because we're going to join it by slip stitching into that very first chain that you did. And then from now on, we're going to be crocheting in the round. So I'm going to chain 2 and then flip my work. And I'm going to double crochet around this row. And I'm going to continue to do double crochet stitches until I reach the very beginning of my row. I'm back at the start of my row. I'm going to finish it out with this last double crochet stitch and making sure that it's not twisted or anything. I'm going to slip stitch into that first double crochet that I did, chain 2, and then I'm going to flip my work and double crochet around this second row. And I'm not going to increase or decrease. I'm just going to continue to make double crochet rows for the next 3 rows. And I'm going to come back when I'm at the end of that third row. I'm at the end of my row. I'm going to finish it out with one last double crochet stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that first double crochet to close up my round. Chain 2, and then flip my work. So now we have our 4 double crochet rows, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This next row is going to be a bit different because we're going to start to do the gathers or the ruffling. So we're going to be doing 3 double crochet stitches into every single stitch. I am going to warn you now, it is going to take a while, but you're only going to work into the back loop. And the reason we're doing that is because later on, when we start to create the bikini area, you need a loop that you can actually work into. So we're doing the ruffling only in the back loop, but then we're going to attach our bikini area to the front loop. Leaving that front loop out just gives us something to crochet into. So I'm going to start by double crocheting into this first double crochet stitch. I'm going to do 3 into that same stitch, remembering only to work into the back loop. Okay, so that's the first one. And then I'm going to move on to the second. And then I'm going to continue along. This row does take a while because however many stitches you had on that previous row, you're multiplying that by 3. And you can see my ruffle is slowly starting to form. It wants to curl up real bad. I'm just going to continue along and I will come back when I'm at that very last stitch. I just finished the last ruffle of this row. I'm going to slip stitch into that first double crochet, chain 2, and then flip my work. So now I'm going to double crochet across this row. I'm going to be working under both loops, not just the back one like we did in the previous row. And I'm going to do 1 double crochet into every stitch. So I'm no longer increasing. For this next section, you're just going to continue to work up these double crochet rows until the ruffle is the length that you want it to be. I made this bikini before, and the first time I did 3 rows of double crochet stitches, including the first increase row. And then I switched to the treble crochet stitch and did 3 rows of the treble or triple crochet stitch. I felt like the double crochets were just taking too long to work up. There's so many stitches on this row. If you want to switch to the treble crochet stitch, even for this row, you would start your row off with 3 chains and then triple crochet or treble crochet across. And I'm going to come back when my ruffle is the length that I want it to be. I'm at the end of this row. I'm going to finish it off with a slip stitch into that first treble crochet stitch. And then I already cut my yarn, so I'm just going to yarn over and pull it all the way through so that it doesn't unravel. But now my ruffle is the length that I want it to be. I ended up doing 6 rows total. So I did 3 rows that were double crochet stitches. This is 1, 2, 3. And then I did 3 treble or triple crochet stitches. So 1, 2, 3. And this is how long the ruffle is. This is how the skirt, the flounce is looking so far. It's pretty wide, but that's it. So I'm going to put this to the side for a second, just for this next step. And the next thing I'm going to do is make the cord that is going to be the waistband tie. The reason why I'm doing this is because the step after that, I'm going to mark using my stitch markers where I want my bikini to start and stop, like how wide I want it to be. I want my bikini to be like in between the princess seams, but I need to be able to hold the bikini up on me in order to mark where that is. So I'm just going to make the tie using the cord stitch in order to hold it up. So I already pulled a pretty decent amount of yarn. Your waistband tie needs to be long enough that it can wrap around your lower waist and tie comfortably into a bow. So I pulled like about 3 times the length of that. And then I'm going to fold my yarn in half. I'm going to do it the same way I did earlier. But I'm folding my yarn in half. I'm taking the short end and then wrapping it around. The short end is on top. And then the long end that I'm working with is on the bottom. I'm going to insert my crochet hook, yarn over, and then pull through. And that created a slip knot. I have 2 loops on my hook. And then I'm going to take the left yarn, which is the yarn that I pulled, and yarn over the hook, and then take the right yarn, which is connected to my skein. And then I'm going to pull that right yarn through those 3 loops. I'm going to try that again. Okay, take the left yarn, yarn over, right yarn, yarn over, and then pull the right yarn through 3 loops. Okay, that was better. Same thing, left yarn, right yarn, and then pull through 2 loops this time. Left yarn, right yarn, pull through 2, left, right, pull through 2. And then I'm just going to continue to work this until the cord is long enough to be the waistband tie. I finished my waistband tie off camera, and this is how it looks. It's about 48 inches long total. So now I'm going to lace this waistband tie through the actual waistband. So if I put this to the side for a second, this is the skirt that I have so far. If I fold this in half, this loose end would be where the center back is, and then the opposite end would be the center front. This is where I'm going to tie my tie into a bow. I'm just going to start to lace it through here. And I'm also going to lace it through the second row. You can pick any of those 3 rows. I wouldn't do the last 4th one because that's just too far down. Really, like the top 2 are where you want to lace your tie through. And then I'm going to skip about 4 double crochet stitches before I pull the tie through the next hole. So like that. All right. And then I'm just going to continue along. I finished lacing the tie through, and now I'm at a point where I can try on the bikini so far, even though it's just a skirt, and I can place my stitch markers to mark where I want my bikini to start and stop. At this point, I tried on my bikini and I used my 4 stitch markers to mark where I want my bikini to start and stop, how wide I want the coverage to be. So these are my front stitch markers. These are the back. This is how wide the front of the bikini will be. This is how wide the back of the bikini will be. I use my princess seams as a guide to where to place those. So your princess seams are a midway point between your center front and your side seam, also your center back and your side seam. It's like directly between those two. However, if you want, let's say, more coverage, you would move your stitch markers a little further out than your princess seam. So you would have them a little closer towards the side seams, which is about right here. And then if you want less coverage, you want a skinnier bikini, you'll move your stitch markers a little closer inwards. So I use the princess seams like right on for the front markers, but I move them a little bit further out for the back because I just wanted more coverage for the back seat of my bikini. So the next thing we're going to do is reattach our yarn to one of the stitch markers. I'm going to do the front first. So I'm going to reattach my yarn to here, this stitch where my front marker is. And then I'm going to double crochet across until I get to that second front marker. And previously when we did the ruffle, we only worked into the back loop. We're going to work into the front loop this time. So you can see that our front loop is still, available to work into. So let's get started with that. You don't have to take your stitch marker out. I'm going to insert my crochet hook underneath that front loop, just the front loop, and then I'll yarn over, pull through. I'm going to take the short piece, the end piece, yarn over and pull it all the way through. And then I reinsert my crochet hook into that loop, yarn over, chain 2. I'm going to start by doing a double crochet into that same stitch where I did those 2 chains. And then I'm going to continue to double crochet across until I get to that second stitch marker. I've reached my second stitch marker. I'm going to double crochet into that last stitch. I'm going to chain 2 and then flip my work. I'm going to start off this row by doing a decrease into those first 2 stitches. And then I'm going to double crochet across until I reach those last 2 stitches. I'm at the end of my row. I have 2 stitches left, so I'm going to end it by doing a decrease. And then I'm going to chain 2 and then flip my work. I'm going to start by doing a decrease again. And then I'm going to continue to double crochet across, decreasing into the last 2 stitches. I'm on the last 2 stitches of this row. I'm going to decrease again, chain 2, and then flip my work. So at this point, the next several rows, you're going to continue to do decrease rows like we did in the previous one. You're going to start with a decrease, double crochet across, and then end with a decrease. You're going to continue to do that until the bikini is narrow enough in order to be the crotch area. So I want mine to be 8 double crochet stitches across. I'm going to continue to decrease until I have 8 double crochet stitches. It's up to you how many stitches you want for that crotch area. You can compare it to like a pair of underwear that you have that fits really well or a bikini. And then I'm going to come back when I get to that point. I'm at the point where my bikini has 8 double crochet stitches. And now I feel like I can start to work up the crotch area. So I already chained 2. This is 8 across. I'm going to start by doing a double crochet stitch into every single stitch without increasing or decreasing. I did 8 across. And now I'm going to chain 2, flip my work, and I'm going to do a double crochet stitch into every stitch again. I'm at the end of the row, chain 2, flip my work. This is the 3rd row, the 3rd stable row. And I'm going to continue to double crochet across for this one. Chain 2. And then I'm going to flip my work again. And this will be my last row for the front of the bikini. I'm at the end, so I'm going to yarn over and pull all the way through. I have 4 rows total where I didn't decrease or increase. And this is just the front of the crotch part. I'm going to do a few stable rows on the back as well. So this is how my bikini is looking so far. I can't fit the whole thing in the frame, but you can see the ruffles. These few top rows here, you're not even going to see once the ruffle is down. But I think that's really cute. I think it's like a little peekaboo moment. The back is done in a pretty similar way to the front. It's just the stitch markers tend to be a little further apart for the back seat. So I have my back stitch markers here. I'm going to open up the bikini. This is technically the inside. You can see the front here. I'm going to reattach my yarn to one of the back stitch markers, this one here, and then I'll double crochet across until I reach that other back stitch marker. I'm only going to work in the front loop again. You want to make sure that you decrease until you get to the same number of stitches that you had on the front crotch area. I decreased until I got to 8 double crochet stitches. I'm going to do the same for the back. A small issue that you may come across when you place your stitch markers, let's say you had an even number of double crochet stitches between those back stitch markers, and then you had an odd number of double crochet stitches between those front 2 stitch markers. When you decrease, you might get to a point where you have, let's say, 8 stitches across, but then when you did the back, you have either 9 or 7, but you decreased the exact same way, so you didn't do anything wrong. What you can do is, instead of decreasing at the first 2 and last 2 stitches when you have that 9 across, you'll decrease at the 2 middle stitches, and that way you'll lose 1 stitch instead of 2. So it'll take that 9 to 8, which will be the same as what you did on the front. You only need to do that if you have odd, even, or even, odd. But now we're gonna get started. We're going to reattach our yarn to this first stitch marker here. I'm gonna pull my short piece through the loop, reinsert my crochet hook into that loop, yarn over, chain two. You're gonna do a double crochet stitch into that same stitch that I did the first two chains, and then double crochet across. This first row is a stable row. I'm on the last stitch. I'm gonna have to take my stitch marker out to do it. I'm gonna do one double crochet stitch. I'm gonna chain two, and then I'm gonna start with a decrease into those first two stitches. I'm gonna double crochet across, and I'm gonna finish this row in a decrease. I'm gonna continue to work up these decrease rows. It's the exact same pattern as before until I get to those 8 stitches. I have finished decreasing. I'm at the point where my row has 8 double crochet stitches, which matches the front bikini. So now I'm gonna start creating stable rows. Previously we did 4. We're gonna do 5 this time where we don't increase or decrease. So I'm at the end of the row. I'm gonna chain 2, flip my work, and then double crochet across. This is my second stable row. I'm just double crocheting across, no increase, no decreases. This is the third. This is the fourth. And this is the last row. I'm at the end of this row. I can cut my yarn. Actually, no, I'm not going to cut my yarn. The next step would be to slip stitch across the crotch area to join it to the front. So I can find it. So this is the front piece. This is the back. I'm going to match them up. I have the same number of stitches across. I'm going to work 1 slip stitch into 2 double crochets. Now I can cut my yarn. Yarn over, pull all the way through, and I just joined the front bikini with the back. So I'm going to take my stitch markers out. I still have a pretty decent amount of yarn left. I ended up using a little less than 2 skeins, but this is how the bikini turned out. At this point, I can take my darning needle and tuck all the loose ends. I'm going to do it off camera because it's the same every time, but the bikini is done and I think it turned out pretty cute. So now I'm going to switch to some images. That's the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching to the very end. I really appreciate it. I did create a written pattern that you can follow along with, and it will be available for purchase on Etsy and Ravelry. I'll post the links below in the description and also in the comment section. So if you would prefer to read along instead of watching a video, you definitely have the option to do so. But yeah, thanks again for watching to the last second. If you could like, subscribe, share, comment, all of that, I would appreciate it even more. And my socials are Kayla across all platforms, including this one. So thanks.